The real reason interest rates are low is far more insidious. And that is, our government is constantly printing oceans of money.
True. I love the Fisher. Good night, Sastrava. I love the Fisher equation when it suggests that when inflation is higher, interest rates go down. What? Part of the reason we have a 2% inflation target is because we want to keep nominal interest rates higher because we believe doing so will help avoid liquidity traps.
They pluck out 1/10 of it, roughly, about $100, and they lend $900 to another guy. Let's say.
But this isn't even true post 2020, even when the money multiplier model, the reserve requirements are 0 right now. The reserve ratio, as I understand it, is there for to ensure banks just have enough reserves on hand at any given point in time, such that they can settle interbank payments.
These are the tariffs that every other country has on us. That was a lie, right?
Well, it was a negotiating tactic.
So it was a lie to negotiate?
It was a negotiating tactic. Look.
But it was a lie then.
We won't even say it.
It was a lie to negotiate. It was a lie, right?
Trump
Who was he negotiating with? The Fox News ratings?
No.
His YouTube views? It was a lie.
Liking and subscribing helps me continue to produce content and is greatly appreciated. You can also make sure to catch these debates live, either here on YouTube or in the description. There are links to my Twitch, my Kick, and my Twitter. No, I will not listen to your music.
You don't invest a ton in U.S. Treasuries because of all the extra trade that we do?
Oh, yeah. So the Europeans take our money and invest it in our treasuries so that they can then collect interest on that, and that's how we have a $38 trillion debt, and you think it's a wonderful arrangement in which we give...
What?
Because you don't think extra trade that we do?
Oh, yeah. So the Europeans take our money and invest it in our treasuries so that they can then collect interest on that, and that's how we have a $38 trillion debt.
That's the causal mechanism behind our debt, is people buying treasury bonds with money from us buying their imports.
And you think it's a wonderful arrangement in which we...
That's maybe in a really dumb sense half true, because the fact that we're the world reserve currency and the fact that we run persistent trade deficits might contribute to the U.S. having lower borrowing costs, and that makes us more willing to borrow. But that's probably good that we have that option, even if we're not utilizing it effectively and we're borrowing too much. Do you play other games? I play a lot of games. Act good. A good account you should follow is Alex, God of Sky. He argues with your boykin to coast all the time. He's a conservative who voted for Harris. I probably have seen him before, but I'm not off the top of my head familiar. If he argues with King to coast a lot, I feel like I would have seen him at one point. So I might recognize it when I pull it up in a second.
The money to then loan to us so we can then pay them the interest on that and go into the red to $38 trillion.
I'm sorry, as opposed to, what do you call a man? When somebody comes up to you and they say, oh, what's your net worth? Well, I have $10 in my bank account. And then another guy, you're like, oh, what's your net worth? What do you do? It's like, oh, I've got a $50 million loan out. Do you think the guy with the $50 million loan is the poor one in that circumstance? The reason why we have a $38 trillion debt, and the reason why our interest rates are still relatively low despite having so much debt, is because so many other people want to invest in the U.S. economy. Our workers get paid more across basically every sector. Everybody wants to come to this country to live. South Africa isn't begging Germany or Britain. If you want surplus export economies, you can look at places like that, like Iran, or places like North Korea, or places like the United...
Or even places like Germany. And Germany has a fiscal surplus, and Germany has they have a budget surplus and a trade surplus, and they're not exactly doing well economically. They've been pretty stagnant.
The kingdom is an export economy right now. These are not favorable places to live, comparatively speaking to the standard of the United States.
What you say is not untrue, but it's not the reason that our interest rates are low. First of all, with regard to Europeans coming to study in America, are you saying that Europeans would not come to study in America from the 40s to now, even though the UnitedTes is leading in technology? We have very good reasons for the Europeans to come study here.
Not when the current administration is supporting them for protesting against Israel.
Now you switch to something else.
I'm not. The Trump administration, you talk about students coming to the United States to study, and the president is attacking all of our universities, making it harder to get student visas. I'm saying no, they wouldn't come.
You're a hit and run man, because whenever I try to stay on a point,
hit and stay, man.
you will
flip
to something completely different.
No, we're on the same point.
Same point. You said interest rates are low because Europeans invest a lot of money in the United States and hold a lot of our treasuries. And I think
Alex was the guy I was asking you to analyze the argument with. That argument? Oh, well, I must have seen him then. But yeah, Metro just told me to look at him. I don't recognize him outside of. Well, now that I see this again, I recognize this, but I don't recognize him outside of that.
That is not even close to the seventh most important reason why interest rates are low. The real reason interest rates are low is far more insidious, and that is our government is constantly printing oceans of money.
True. I love the Fisher. Good night, Sasraba. I love the Fisher equation when it suggests that when inflation is higher, interest rates go down. What? Two retards fighting. Kill me. First of all, technically, all else equal, the higher the nominal inflation rate is, the higher the interest rate should be. Now, if you could, like, so for example, when we do quantitative easing, that might add to the money supply and also push down interest rates insofar as, like, the Fed is driving down bond yields and they're buying, we did quantitative easing in 2008 to drive down long-term interest rates, because and that also adds to the money supply. It didn't lead to really any inflation because we were also paying interest on reserves. But I don't know why he feels qualified to talk about
They have the ability to print money and dilute the money that is in your pocket. So you work hard to earn money. Your own government, as we speak, is printing money. When I came to the United States, I had $500 in my pocket, 1980. If I had saved that money, spent none of it, through great frugality, and if I had it now, the purchasing power of that same $500 today would be approximately $50.
Whoa. Advanced analysis we're doing here. But, like, just, like, you can just, like, look at the equation. It's not that hard to, like, part of the reason we have a 2% inflation target is because we want to keep nominal interest rates higher because we believe doing so will help avoid liquidity traps. Like, we literally at least partially target inflation because we want to keep interest rates higher. Nominal interest rates higher. Who do you think is right? From what I remember from the thread, I think I would lean more with Matt Darling and the fucking other dude. The Tyler guy or whatever. Was it Tyler? I think Tyler was on Matt's side as well, right? Or might have been someone else who was on Matt's side and Tyler on the other side. I like, from my understanding, the argument, if I remember correctly, was just about whether or not having a welfare state that supplies people with basic needs, how big the effect is going to be on people's decision to, like, move to cities, for example, after a factory is, like, offshored, right? And it was a dispute about, like, whether the marginal utility of getting basic necessities is high enough to keep people in rural areas when they should be moving to cities if the welfare state wasn't there, and they'd be more productive in the city, and presumably things would be better if they lived in the city for everyone else. I don't think the marginal utility is that high or falls off right after that amount of basic necessities enough such that it's going to have a major effect on people's decisions like that. I think, especially because psychologically as well, people don't value, like, government transfer payments the same way they psychologically value market income. Like, there's a stigma to accepting market income or transfer payments. People don't view them as useful. They don't view them as earned. Sort of. I might be. It was like 2 days ago or something. It was a stupid argument.
In other words, we save money and we practice deferred gratification. And the one thing we want is for our money to hold its value. We would rather it go up in value because we've worked so hard to get it. But our government, our own government, screws us.
I love, yes. Why are we doing this? That's not what people want. That's not what people want. People want to be able to buy more goods. People want to be able to afford a better basket of goods over time. It is probably true that having some amount of inflation every year is better at supporting that goal than having money appreciate over time, than having deflation, because wages are sticky and such. What we want to do is more inflation and maximize effective demand. This is real. This is real.
By diluting our money, because when they print money, they get to spend it, and the money in all of our pockets goes down.
True. I love Cantillon effects. Yes, this is exactly how that works.
Selling treasuries is not printing money. Quantitative easing or other things. There are different factors that you can talk about when it comes to monetary policy. But the reason why our interest rates are low is because a lot of people want to buy U.S. treasuries. So we can sell our debt at a very low interest. If not many people wanted to buy it, then we would raise the interest on our debt. Printing money and saying that that's magically making interest rates low, doesn't make sense. It's not connected.
This is called... Oh,
The causal... Well,
doesn't make any sense.
So selling treasuries is not printing money. Quantitative easing or other things. There are different factors that you can talk about when it comes to monetary
like this
policy.
is true,
but
though.
the reason why our interest rates are
I don't know if Justin knows enough to actually back that up if Dinesh pushed him on it, but...
low is because a lot of people want to buy U.S. treasuries. So we can sell our debt at a very low interest. If not many people wanted to buy it, then we would raise the interest on our debt.
That's basically true. Okay.
Printing money and saying that that's magically making interest rates low doesn't...
The marginal incentive of substitution of labor for leisure depends on income. At $0, the income incentive is extremely large. I agree with that. At 20K, it is a lot less. A lot less is not like very quantifiable to me. My understanding is that they were disputing like whether by a lot less, like it would affect people's decision to move. Like that was a big, like how big that effect specifically would be. Because I like broadly agree with that, but I think because people psychologically value government transfer payments less, and marginal utility probably does not just fall off super substantially after a minimum threshold of income, people are still like, it's not going to be big enough to affect decisions like that in most cases. At 20K income is a lot less, etc. This is all true even with no taxes. Like having to go, oh, they want to sell me art. I don't need art right now. I'm good.
It makes sense. It's not connected.
This is called... Oh, it doesn't make any sense? Okay. The interest rate is the price of money, right? How difficult it is to get money is what sets the interest rate. Now, let's just assume as a thought experiment that I, right now, double the amount...
They're not even...
out of money in circulation. Will the interest rate go up or down? Down. Because the supply of money is vastly greater. Just go back to Economics 101.
Economics 101. If you were a German citizen and you...
Okay, if you okay. If you shift, like, the loanable funds, the supply of loanable funds to the right, interest rates can go down. That is true. And if it is, like, and obviously the loanable funds market itself might have some problems with that model. You can argue about that. But if they... Actually, isn't the y-axis on the loanable funds market, isn't that the real interest rate? Or do they do nominal interest rate? But it's also true that higher nominal inflation leads to higher nominal interest rates. And in fact, again, that's part of the reason we have an inflation target in the first place, because we want high enough nominal interest rates such that we don't feel like there's going to be a liquidity trap if interest rates fall a little bit and, get to zero.
Wanted to buy a U.S. Treasury bond, and it was paying 5% was the coupon rate on it. If you knew that the U.S. was going to double their money supply, why would you buy that Treasury bond for a lower interest rate? You would demand a higher interest rate on it.
You would. The reason you would buy...
Destiny, Destiny doesn't actually know that. He doesn't know the name of the equation or anything, but he got the logic there. Yeah, exactly.
That Treasury bond is because the German Bundesbank is tripling the amount of its own money. In other words, they're printing money too. And the United States is an abuser of the money supply, but not as big an abuser as other countries.
Okay, then how are these countries
actually answer Destiny's question.
Shouldn't they be abusing the money supply?
He's just pointing out to you your logic there doesn't work, because investors, obviously, if investors have an expectation that inflation is going to be higher, they're going to demand a higher nominal interest rate, so the real rate of return is the same.
They're taking advantage of us so much. Like
the reason that look, why was there runaway inflation of 15% per month in Argentina, and why do these interest rates and inflation rates vary so much around the world? There's more than one reason, but the primary reason is money printing, and you can see why it's very attractive for governments to print money. Here's why: if they didn't print money, let's just say we outlawed it, the U.S. government, every time they spent money, would have to come to you, the taxpayer, and tell you, we're going to extract more $20 bills out of your wallet, and you would be like, no. If you try to do that, I'll vote against you.
Even if you don't print money, you can still sell
Treasury bonds. The government has come up with a beautiful scheme. Let's not consult the citizens. Let's just steal from them by secretly removing $20 bills out of their pocket, and we do this by running this thing called the money printer.
If this was so bad for the economy,
that's like, it's in a dumb way kind of accurate. Now, like in the U.S., like the Federal Reserve can't like directly monetize debt. Now, in effect, they will, because they'll supply banks with reserves such that they can buy primary or treasuries at the primary market. But like technically, it's not directly true that like the U.S. finances spending through printing money. how much we finance it through printing money will depend on, how much, what the Federal Reserve is doing at the time. Do you believe in efficiency wages? It wasn't, it wowed me when Matt says he outright doesn't believe in a standard Econ 101 topic. I mean, I believe that they can be a thing. Is what Matt meant by that? Like, maybe he just doesn't believe they actually happen that often. Do you have Discord? I do have Discord. ! Discord in the chat. You can join the Discord server and chat to all the Nonfon fans. I will ban you if you advertise your art, though.
Okay, sure. Well, let's say it's so horrible. Why does every single country on the planet have central banking?
Because central governments love money cartels. What could be better for the governments of the world than to have a cartel in which they control the money supply?
All of these governments all over the planet are engaged in this anti-democratic behavior. No citizens actually want this, and no individual country has figured out that if we don't do this, we'll be better than every other country. Wouldn't it be a lot simpler to think maybe they engage in central banking practices because that's just a better way to run an economy?
No. This shows a colossal level of naivete. But let me put it this way: the ordinary person thinks that our whole system, including our banking system, works completely differently than it does. So I asked my wife the other day, if you put $1,000 in the bank, what happens to it? She goes, "Oh, it's in the bank."
Oh my god. Does he know the average American thinks that banking works in a completely different way than it does? Anyway, let me explain to you the money multiplier. Oh no. Oh no.
I go, so if you want to get it anytime, you can just go to the bank and ask for it, and they'll give you your $1,000, right? And she goes, yeah, right. And I go, what if I told you that when you put the $1,000 in the bank takes the $1,000, they pluck out 1/10 of it, roughly, about $100, and they lend $900 to another guy. Let's say.
But this isn't even true post 2020, even when the money multiplier model, the reserve requirements are 0 right now, and we pay interest on reserves. So it's the reserve ratio did not matter post 2008 since we started paying interest on reserves because banks hold excess reserves at the Fed that they get paid interest on. But also the reserve ratio is 0. The reserve ratio is 0. It's 0. It's 0. You can go check the Fed's website. As of 2020, it's 0. But even before that, that's not really what the reserve ratio is there for. The reserve ratio, as I understand it, is there for to ensure banks just have enough reserves on hand at any given point in time, such that they can settle interbank payments. It's not actually reserve ratio is big 0. Yeah, it's been 0 since 2020. But it doesn't actually restrain necessarily how much banks can lend in the sense that Dinesh just talking about. Because loans create deposits.
Say Steve right here. But they don't actually give him the money either. They open up a checking account for $900 in his name. So now you have two guys who both think that they've got the same $900 in the bank, but it doesn't even end there. Let's say that Steve has a deposit in another bank.
Yeah, exactly.
He goes to the other bank, let's call it Wells Fargo. He deposits his $900. What does that bank do? They take the $900, set aside $90, and loan $810 to another guy, or open up a checking account in his name. What I'm getting at is, whose $1,000 is it? And the answer is the bank, by a cartel arrangement allowed by the Federal Reserve. This would be fraud in any other area.
So wouldn't it be fraud? What you're explaining, it's called fractional reserve banking. It's what every country on the planet does. But then when your wife says, "Can I get that $1,000?" would you tell her no?
No, I would tell her that. I would tell her yes. I would tell her because even though the money is fictional, it has already been lent out. If you go to the bank, let's just say all of us tomorrow decide.
It's not even. Wait, he's a Rothbardian, OMG. Yeah, basically. No, well, not quite. Well, he says he wants Bitcoin a bit later on. I've seen a clip a little bit later. Within the next 5 minutes, I'm assuming they'll get to the clip I've seen. If marginal utility consumption were pretty flat, I don't know if it's. I don't know if I describe it as pretty flat, but there'd be very little value in redistribution from haves to have-nots. The log utility curve is pretty steep. I don't know where. I guess. I don't know if I would describe it overall as pretty flat or pretty steep. I think clearly past certain thresholds, it either flattens out or gets or is very steep, right? I think it is clear past. I think if you actually look at studies on happiness, it's past even $200,000 or something. You don't actually get any happier as your income rises. Now I think that's kind of underestimated of the actual marginal utility of that consumption. But like clearly past $1 billion, it's probably pretty flat. Like there's not much you can afford at $10 billion or $200 billion that you couldn't afford at $1 billion, other than like maybe like I guess private jets might be a little hard to finance at $1 billion to keep using, because I know they are expensive to maintain and store and everything, and that might represent some reasonable increase in utility. But beyond like private jet level of money, like you can get like bigger houses and like stuff, but like that marginal utility is probably not very high. And I think past a certain threshold of minimum standard of living, you are correct in stating like that effect to substitution of labor or whatever is going to be there, at least. I'm saying it's not flat. I'm proposing that if it was hypothetically flat, there'd be it would be little justification for redistribution. No, I can see it. Yeah, sure.
Go to the bank and collect our money, and the bank didn't have it. What would they do?
Do you do
Answer?
Nonfon awards yet? No. I believe Nonfon awards will be on Friday. If not on Friday, then on Saturday. So there is still time to vote if you have not, and tell everyone else to vote too.
Phone call to the Federal Reserve. Print the money. So the backstop of all of
Wait, what?
lent out. If you go to the bank, let's just say all of us tomorrow decide to go to the bank and collect our money, and the bank didn't have it. What would they do? Answer? Phone call to the Federal Reserve. Print the money. So the backstop.
Like, I don't know who. I guess he's saying the banks make the phone call. Like that part of the reason we have a Federal Reserve is because by changing the amount of reserves that banks have, they can respond to changes in the demand for money, more effectively than governments can under the gold standard, for example. Like they're concerned with the gold standard, and I don't know how the fuck this would work under a Bitcoin standard, because Bitcoin is just super volatile. Is that if the demand for money increases, the government can't easily respond to that because dollars are just worth a certain amount of gold. So what happens is the price level falls. The value of other goods has to fall in order for the dollar to rise in value, because there's more demand for it, because people want to hold more money, and that would lead to that leads to deflation, and that's typically not good, so, because it makes it harder for people to repay their debt and such, and wages are sticky, so output falls, and yada yada yada. That's why yes, part of the justification for the Federal Reserve, but that's kind of what we want. And the fact that the confidence is there that if everyone were to do that, the Federal Reserve would be able to stabilize everything and just print enough money to satisfy people's demands. Like that itself is justification for not withdrawing your money, right? Like that confidence itself, that certainty, prevents bank runs, because people know that their deposits are safe, that they can't, the Federal Reserve at the end of the day will probably print that money. Since 2008, not a dollar in even uninsured deposits has been lost, because the FDIC will insure deposits. And I don't know if I think they're in 2008, they probably tapped into newly printed money. I don't know if since then they've tapped into newly printed money. They might have been Silicon Valley Bank, but people know their money will be safe.
Of all of this is the unlimited ability of the federal government to prevent bank runs of the kind that occurred in the Depression.
Correct. That's why some things are called FDIC insured. So a savings account would be an FDIC insured product by the bank. Wouldn't it be better for that $1,000 deposited in the bank, instead of just rotting there collecting dust, to be mobilized in the economy so that people could actually do something with it, like have a mortgage for a house or invest in a business?
I think this is where the clip I saw started.
Or do literally anything else besides sit there as termite food?
Okay, so I don't think we need to go into this, because you don't even know what you're talking about.
What did I just say? What did I just say? Explain to me the velocity of money. Explain to me why it's not good to have money sitting in a bank doing nothing than it is for it to be mobilized in an economy. Tell me.
Okay. No, we're not disagreeing about mobilizing the money. We're disagreeing about the mechanism of doing it and who is left holding the bag. So
I don't know, obviously people people themselves make judgments about whether or not to mobilize their money based on the return it gets in different accounts and based on the liquidity that it has. You don't get any interest on a checking account, but you can use it to pay your groceries every day just fine, right? You don't buy groceries every day, but you understand the point. But your savings account, you do get interest on, but you're limited in how much you can withdraw from it. Like, this is like people individually make these trade-offs on their own. I don't really know what D'Souza means by what he said there. D'Souza doesn't understand the velocity of money. Well, I don't think he's using that term correctly. I think I understand. Like, I think he broadly understands the velocity of money, but he did not use the term correctly there. Although I don't think he would have a very good understanding. But
19th century, we had no Fed. The United States became the largest economy in the world. In the 19th century, we had fractional banking.
Causal inference is my
but banks
passion.
couldn't meet their obligations. They went bankrupt. And so there was free market competition among the banks. It was to prevent that free market competition that the Fed was set up. Essentially, what the Fed decided to do is...
What the year is...
Not, well... He literally explained part of the reason why the Fed was set up. To prevent, like, bank runs and stuff. And that's not really, like the purpose of doing that is not anti-competitive. It, like, you can say it's it's obviously not free banking. Like, it's not literally free banking with no regulations or whatever, but it's not really I don't think that's properly considered like an anti-competitive policy necessarily.
2025, and you want to emulate the banking system we had when there were cowboys and Indians in the 19th, 18th century? How far back do you want to go? We live in a modern world that has modern demands for our monetary system. Why does no other country on the planet employ the obviously superior form of banking that you're talking about?
Because it is in the interest of every state has recognized for thousands of years that controlling the money supply is the key to controlling the wealth of the country. That is what, in the era of gold, what the governments used to do is take the gold coin and dilute the coin. Put base metal into the coin. So the coin, which was supposed to be pure gold, is now only 50% gold or 30% gold. So this racket has been going on for a long time.
So do you think Trump should get rid of FDIC insurance and fractional reserve banking?
That's libertarian
FDI
swap.
insurance is a complete illusion.
So we should get rid of it and go back to the gold standard?
Not the gold standard per se.
FDI insurance is a complete illusion? What does that mean? It, like... In some sense, I agree with him, because even if we didn't have FDIC insurance, the Federal Reserve would, be able to respond to changes in the demand for money and try to prevent bank runs by just giving banks more reserves. But what?
But we should go back to a free banking system, which would include Bitcoin, which would include all kinds of currencies.
Yes.
We're talking about fake money, and you support Bitcoin?
Bitcoin is not fake money.
Okay.
You think that something is fake money because, first of all, you give this rhapsody to modern technology, and when finally a form of money is created privately that cannot be inflated, that has a fixed supply, and that in fact has...
It cannot be inflated. Bitcoin has one of the wildest volatility indexes of any currency on the planet, besides maybe Zimbabwe.
Do you realize that
Dude, Dinesh's response here,
inflating
bro.
a currency and volatility have nothing to do with each other? Volatility has to do with the market's appraisal of a new product. There was extreme volatility around all the internet companies for about 20 years.
There's no volatility around Bitcoin? You don't
There's
think
a lot of volatility around Bitcoin because the market is full of people who look at this thing, don't understand it, and go, "What's this? I've never had private money. To me, a dollar bill needs to be said. It needs to stay on the bill, backed up with the full faith of the U.S. government. Otherwise, it's not money."
Efficient market hypothesis debunked, guys. We did.
So this is an ancient way to think, and something like Bitcoin confuses you because it's new. But
so to be clear, it doesn't confuse me. It just doesn't. It makes it so a country loses complete and total control of their monetary
exactly,
system.
and that's why you oppose it, because you are a statist and you want your government to
No, I
control
oppose
the
it because
money
I took
supply.
econ in high school and I realized that.
True. D'Souza, the statist here. By the way, they didn't get to talk much about this, but Dinesh supports. I believe he supports the deportations. I know I'm fairly confident he supports Trump taking over Intel, for example. Like, certainly, like I don't know point blank if you asked him, like, do you support this? He would say just flat out yes, but like he would run defenses for them absolutely.
There's a value to a country being able to control their currency.
What is that value?
Well, in times of great economic depression,
Didn't
sometimes
I
it's
read
nice to be able to inflate your currency a little more because that's a
Bitcoin
preferential.
standard book or something? Probably. He's probably just gearing up to his own Dinesh coin, right? That's got to be. That's my opinion. That's probably his goal.
State of affairs than half the country going unemployed, or like we did during the Great Depression. Or other times it might be nice to pull back on your currency if you want to deflate a market that might be running a little bit too hot, like the run up to the 2008 housing crisis.
So I reject this whole.
And you stand in opposition to central banking across the entire planet.
Doesn't understand the 2008 crisis was actually caused by overly contractionary monetary policy and falling in GDP. Unbelievable. To be clear, 30% credence in that theory. Maybe more than 30%. Maybe 40% or something.
This is a whole Keynesian understanding that is itself has all these embedded false assumptions. The false assumptions are that you've got this thing called, quote, the money supply. That the money supply is kind of like a something that can be regulated with a faucet. You turn it up, you turn it down. This was Keynes' justification.
If anything, maybe I'm wrong. Isn't, I don't know if Keynes himself said this, but like part of the Keynesian, neo-Keynesian, whatever, criticism of some of the monetarist stuff is that the money supply is not such a defined thing. Like the money supply is hard to define. Like maybe I'm crazy, but I'm pretty sure part of the Keynesian and new Keynesian critique of more monetarist ideas is that there is no such thing as the money supply, and it's hard to what money supply should we be using in the equation of exchange. Like, does M2 matter for that? Like, M2 doesn't seem to correlate super strongly, at least in all cases, with the money inflation rate.
In the 1930s.
What do you think is more precise position, Secretary of State or Director of FBI? I feel like Secretary of State, but I don't know. Maybe they do less than I think, but I feel like Secretary of State.
For an unlimited welfare state. Keynes was very explicit about his motives. He's very explicit about what he was trying to do. Frankly, he was not even an economist. But nevertheless, he advanced this theory, which has been regurgitated.
Oh, yes. Thanks, Dinesh. Hold on. If I just look at the Keynes, there is no such thing as the money supply. I don't know if there's anything from Keynes himself, although Google AI did give me something. The statement, there is no such thing as money supply, is widely recognized as a misattribution of John Maynard Keynes. He never actually said it. Have you ever been to any football games? No, not really. In the conclusion of Raising Keynes, Mark Lynn writes, there's no theory of money in the general theory, or rather there's no coherent theory of money. Given the existence of a central bank, Keynes undoubtedly thought that the money supply is fixed by the monetary authority and the hurdle rate of interest is responding perhaps insufficiently to the money supply. So yeah, I don't know if Keynes himself said it, but
to economics.
I thought maybe you were referencing a more post-Keynesian critique of money. It might be a post-Keynesian thing. So like I said, I don't know if Keynes himself had said something to that degree, but my understanding is that the more Keynesian, post-Keynesian, neo-Keynesian, the economists who accept many of Keynes's other ideas do critique monetarism by saying the money supply is not a very clearly defined thing. Maybe I could ask ChatGPT. Or Google Gemini. My ChatGPT subscription ran out. I use Google Gemini, which is, from my experience, actually better at a number of things.
Students for almost a century now. All I'm saying is that money is valid. No money has intrinsic value. I think the
post-Keynesians say you can't target money supply because it's a terminal priority. There are, I know post-Keynesians do say that.
The bill has no intrinsic value either. So if you say Bitcoin doesn't have intrinsic value, neither does a $20 bill. By the way, neither does gold if you don't count earrings and ornaments.
To be clear, the dollar has value because the U.S. government accepts it as payment for taxes. Nobody has to accept Bitcoin as payment.
Holy shit, we got FMT Destiny. What the fuck?
Exactly. So whoop-de-doo, I take my Bitcoin, I change it to US dollars, and I pay my taxes.
If somebody's willing to buy it from you, yes. But you can't pay your U.S. taxes or U.S. debt obligations in Bitcoin.
So
Dinesh and Stephen, we do have about 15 minutes left, just so you guys know, and I thought maybe we should touch on Trump and political violence, if you feel like it.
Well, we actually haven't talked about the topic of our debate, which I took to be whether Trump on net is a good thing or a bad thing for America. And so I'd like to say a word about why I think a little bit about Trump, the man, and a little bit about what I think he's done for the country, and then maybe you can say the same, and we can kind of get to the heart of what we're talking about. So to me, Trump's first term was very positive for the most part, but kind of blasé. He was stopped in his tracks by 2 years of Russia collusion hoax, but he got a lot of things done. And the economy was in better shape, manifestly pre-COVID, in March of 2020, leading up to the election. Quite frankly, had it not been for COVID, I don't even think election fraud could have helped Joe Biden. But Trump was hit by this, was sideswiped by COVID. But, and that's a fact. Jane Fonda basically said COVID is God's gift to the left. So if you can't see the truth of that, I know what to say to you. The years of Biden were essentially the years of taking the American bus and driving it straight to the cliff. In foreign policy, with the Afghan disgrace. In domestic policy, inflation goes to the highest level that it was going. You have to go back to the 70s, to the OPEC era, to find inflation rates of 9%. Biden achieved that. And an open, porous border, which is actually inviting, not only inviting, helping caravans of people coming from thousands of miles away, no vetting, doesn't matter if you're a criminal. There were foreign governments that emptied the jails and boasted about it. And all these thugs, criminals, bad guys, terrorists are now in this country. I think if we had kept going in...
Really cool how we got here in the last 20 minutes of the debate. Can't wait for this. And I think a lot of it's going to be Q&A, right? Which I don't think we're going to watch, but...
this way, it's hard to see how the
It's
country...
probably the worst content you've ever watched. Okay.
...would survive a whole lot more of this. So Trump's great achievement
might be a little
was to
harsh.
come in and stop this dead in its tracks. The border is secure. You probably not only heard, but some of you may have bought into all the embellishment, all the rhetorical ballet. We need comprehensive immigration reform. There's no other way to secure the border. You heard all of this. You might have said it yourself. It's untrue.
Well, it turns out if you kind of just don't care and just probably break the law by freezing many of these asylum things through the executive branch, then it turns out if you're willing to break the law, then yeah, you probably don't need it.
Just proved it to be untrue by just showing you can't get in. However, we have somewhere between 8, maybe 10 million illegals who are already here.
What's up,
What do you do with them?
Welcome back.
Trump is doing the most humane thing he could do. If it were me, I would ask all 8 to 10 million to leave. I recognize that certain things are a fait accompli. You might have Americans who came 20 years ago and they've had kids here. They're embedded in our society. I'm willing to be prudent about the issue in some ways, but I don't see any reason why people who essentially came across the border in the last 4 years under Biden as part of a cynical scheme to create future Democratic voters.
Oh my God.
Why those people should not be asked to leave now. So I would go much further than Trump and try to get these people to self-deport. If they would not deport, I would try to think of
sensible 6-7 million migrants. It's true.
Pragmatic ways to get them out. But they have broken the law and they need to pay a price for it. Now, on the foreign policy front, Trump's view is really simple. I'm not going to get involved in expensive foreign wars, but there are many bad guys in the world and I will not hesitate to pulverize them. This applies to Soleimani. It applies to Baghdadi. If I have one criticism of Trump, I think he didn't go far enough with Iran. I think that Israel was pretty close to toppling the Iranian regime. That would have been excellent regime change. Many people who think regime change doesn't work don't realize that you're operating off basically 2 examples, Iraq and maybe Afghanistan, where it actually worked for a while, but was handled very badly in the overall. But regime change, if you look at the examples of the last 100 years, has mostly worked and worked for the better. And I think it would work for the better in Venezuela. I think it would work for the better in Iran. And I think Trump stopped it in Iran, which I oppose. I think he is trying to get rid of Maduro in Venezuela. My wife is Venezuelan. Pretty much any living Venezuelan who's outside of Venezuela will tell you they fled the country. Maduro is a one-party dictator. The reason Maduro loves Democrats is because he sees them as his allies. The question of displacing him under Biden never even arose. But I think his days are numbered, as Trump says. Trump will probably get him out. And then you look at the economic front, and Trump is doing 2 things. One is he is creating a kind of...
oh my God, how long are we going to let him speak, bro? How many plays? He's raised like 5 different points for like each of the 3 things he's talked about, dog.
He's essentially unleashing American energy. American energy, the United States, as it turns out, has giant energy resources, probably more than enough for the next 100 years. Our main obstacle is we just don't go get it. And all kinds of reasons, environmental reasons, obviously people who are in the business have reasons to block it. Trump's point is, why don't we unleash energy? And so if we unleash energy, we unleash AI, we unleash robotics. We are looking at a potential...
Kind of crazy that all the AI stuff, that happens to be the one kind of sector of the economy where all that stuff is exempt from tariffs. Isn't that that's a little weird that we're seeing a lot of growth in the places where you can import stuff without paying a tariff on it. Interesting. What does Orhan say? Free buses means less bus drivers will get assaulted, so buses will become safer. I don't know why he says it. I don't think it's true. I think he, I don't know what the motivation behind saying it is. I know he cites that one study that like Matt Darling wrote a whole thing about why it's like just wrong what's around a citing. I guess I don't know his full motivation behind saying that other than just to make it sound like a better idea.
Era of abundance. By the way, Bitcoin is a big part of that. So Trump is turning the levers of creating massive abundance in the United States. It may even be that some of our problems like the debt can be washed away in this abundance. You don't have to scrounge on Social Security. You don't have to screw the Gen Zs or screw the boomers. We will actually have the wealth to do this. Do you know that the Biden people were basically blocking AI under the pretext that we'll only allow it if we control it? This is what the Biden people were telling the high-tech guys. We'll only play ball with you if you basically turn over the levers to us. Otherwise, we're not going to allow it. So what we're seeing under Trump, I think, is something that's quite epical. It might take us years to be able to look and see what was unleashed. It's kind of like in the 1980s under Reagan. We could see something big was happening. Microsoft was starting. I ran into a conference. There was Michael Dell. The tech revolution was getting going. And it's done a lot for the world. So my case for Trump is that this guy, being transactional, actually understands very well how the world works, is not unwilling to use U.S. muscle in trade deals or in the leverage of foreign policy power. And the best that his critics have are these kind of whiny, let's go back to the Mar-a-Lago case and look at it in excruciating detail because we really could have gotten him then. This is a pathetic way to go after a guy.
Okay, let's go back. Let's go back from the last thing you mentioned to the first. So, what is Trump trying to do with tariffs?
Can you hear my PC fans? God damn, what is that? I don't know why they're like fluctuating like that. My CPU is like fine. For streaming and having Minecraft open, it's fine.
What Trump is trying to do with tariffs is this. The United States sells stuff abroad, and other countries, India, Australia, many others, place giant tariffs on those products. Sometimes,
what is Trump trying to do with tariffs?
What is the effective rate that Australia imposes on U.S. exports? It cannot be that high.
Trump is trying to do two things. One is he's trying to use the tariffs as a form of strong arming or arm wrestling, basically saying, I will put tariffs on you, and I will only take them off if you take off yours.
Then why does he keep changing to countries like China?
Okay, so be aware that this has actually not even been seriously attempted before.
Because
our governments were
it's illegal.
It's not illegal.
The president can't. Do you think the president of the United States is allowed to do unilateral econ policy?
The president of the United States has a lot of economic levers that he can use
in times of national crises.
Wow.
Exactly.
Our debt is not a national.
And you don't think trade deficits are national crisis? It's not even clear whether IEPA would justify the tariffs Trump is doing under, even if we were in a national crisis. Like the Supreme Court arguments that are going on right now do not discuss whether like a trade deficit or something, it constitutes a national crisis. I kind of wish they would, but the president seems to be granted a lot of authority that's not really reviewable with regards to declaring, what constitutes some type of foreign national threat. So they're not really discussing that. They're discussing whether or not, even if we were in an emergency, they're taking for granted that we are in an emergency. They're discussing whether or not IEPA justifies the tariffs that he's done so far.
National crisis. If it was, Trump would be even worse for it. But
so
we have no trade deals.
I think that $38 trillion of debt. I think that a stagnating economy.
This is a tariff rate weighted average mean all products on U.S. goods. Or no, it might not be specifically on U.S. goods. This is just overall, I think. But I kind of doubt it's much higher in U.S. goods. Australia is 0.99. And then this is, I think, manufactured products, 1.04. Like, bro.
I think that
why did you say that the first Trump term was a good one? He added to the debt more than he needed to, right?
He added to the debt, which you'd have to put into the negative column. I mean, all presidents have added to the debt. Just look at the, essentially one out of every, I think, $4 in the country today was generated starting in 2020.
Sure, Trump is continuing to add to it even.
Actually, one out of every, I think, $4 in the country today was generated starting in 2020.
Sure, Trump is continuing.
Starting in 2020, who was president? The money supply contracted overall over Biden, but also the president just does not really control the money supply. Like bro, what are we doing here? Like this is all under Trump. I think from, if you look at January 2021 to January, I know it might not have contracted overall, but it contracted during much of his term. To January 2025, it's like it contracted from April 2022 to December 2023, and then it started going up again.
continuing to add to it even more.
Yes,
right?
Trump
Trump
is
won't
them
have a single
too.
budget surplus by the end of his presidential
Trump
term, right?
is, look, you should be happy with him for this. Trump is, in fact,
No, he won't have a budget surplus by
Trump
the end
is
of
a
his
big
4-year term,
spender
right?
when it
Yeah.
comes to spending money. He's more like a Democrat in that regard.
Well, no, because Republicans have been the big spenders, right? Isn't a Democrat the last one with a budget surplus? Clinton?
Well,
Can we not agree on basic facts here?
Clinton was,
Right?
come on.
Wasn't Bush the Republican the one that started all of the foreign wars?
The Clinton surplus was 100% the result of a peace dividend created by the collapse of the Soviet Union.
surplus is
which
a
occurred
surplus.
in a surplus is a surplus.
What?
But
I don't even think that's. I think you could argue the Clinton surplus is partly due to like the dot-com bubble, at least. I'm not sure what the peace dividend really had to do with it. Maybe, but
this
I
is
thought
like,
Donald Trump used to collapse the Soviet. Doesn't Donald Trump have like 9 country wars that he's ended? So we should have tons of surplus then, right? Do you agree? You acknowledge that by the end of Trump's 4 years, we will not be at a budget surplus, right?
I agree.
Okay, so then
and
the
you're
debt point
missing
is
the
worthless.
argument I made.
You just said he might solve the $30 trillion of debt. And now you're saying it's not going to take away from the budget deficit.
Well, you weren't listening to me. What I was saying was one way to solve the debt is to start paying it off. That's a very painful way when you consider that not only the vast majority of our budget is currently in entitlements, but those entitlements are scheduled to increase dramatically. So this is a painful way to do it. You can see why our congressmen and senators in both parties don't want to do that.
Well,
And
but the
hold
person
on,
who hurt paying it off the most was Trump with the tax cuts. And they did it this year when they solidified the tax cuts, didn't they?
the very best way to pay off the debt is to enlarge the economic pie.
Which he's shrinking more than he should be.
true, which is what the big beautiful bill is gonna do. It's gonna do so much. It's gonna offset all the decrease in taxes. No one actually believes this. No one actually believes this. No one believes the dynamic effects, or the increased growth that the big beautiful bill is going to cause is actually going to be enough to outweigh the taxes it's decreasing. Like, no one believes this. Like, no, what's up, Radical Coder? Let's fucking go. Thanks for the raid. I appreciate it. No, like, literally no one remotely competent believes this. If you want to like argue that like certain things are. By the way, if you guys don't know, Radical Coder, another based liberal streamer. I bet a lot of you guys do know him because you've seen me on Sarah's panels before and stuff where he's there. You guys should go check him out. Regardless, no remotely competent person believes this. There's no remotely competent estimate that finds that. You can look at the estimates from the Yale Budget Lab. You can look at the estimates from The Economist has an estimate. You can look at the estimates from the Congressional Bureau and stuff. Oh, hell yeah. What's up, Fuzzy B? Shout out to the shrimp well forever. I didn't even notice. Guys. I totally forgot to actually set up my fucking shrimp costume. It's been crushed up in the background. Can't believe it. Yeah, literally no one remotely competent believes that. There's no evidence we're like on the wrong side of the Laffer curve with regards to the taxes, the big beautiful bill cut, like I think personal income tax and the corporate tax rate.
It should be growing faster, but the tariffs have
And
hurt it.
what I was
But, like,
saying-
why did they solidify the
I
tax
was
And
saying
cut?
it does mean right there too. Like obviously any conceivable benefit it will have to growth is probably going to be outweighed by things like the tariffs that he's doing, which are going to hurt growth. I didn't realize you had that pimple. Oh fuck! I shouldn't have full screen my camera then.
I was saying that the combined effect, in my opinion, of energy unleashing, AI, and robotics, the United States has been growing at a rate of somewhere around 1 to 2% for now decades.
Oh my god, is he going to do a 25% growth meme, please?
It was growing at 3 to 4% in the middle of the last century. If we can create growth rates of 5, 6, 9%, which are entirely in the realm
Okay,
of
we didn't go that far. Okay, I was worried we were going to get to Trump can get us to 25% growth.
possibility.
Not when you hurt your
given
trade
the-
relationship with every other country on the planet like we've done with the tariffs. You acknowledge, for instance, when Trump held up the tariff sign, that all those numbers were a lie, right? None of those tariffs were accurate for any other country, right?
Look,
can you acknowledge
I
that
think
simple
that-
basic fact that all the numbers on that chart were a lie? They used a math formula.
What
to
is
get
not
their
a lie?
basic
What is
fact.
not a lie?
But was that a lie, though?
What is not a
Wasn't
lie?
that a lie?
What is not a
Wasn't
lie?
that a lie, though? When he held up the sign, didn't he lie to the American public, to you and me and everybody else in here and the entire world when he said, these are the tariffs that every other country has on us? That was a lie, right?
Well, it was a negotiating tactic.
So it was a lie to
It was
negotiate?
a negotiating tactic. Look,
But it was a lie then. We
He
can at
won't
least-
even say
It was
it.
a lie to negotiate. It was a lie, right?
Trump
Who was he
is-
negotiating with? The Fox News ratings?
No.
His YouTube views? It was a lie.
Are you saying that if
I'm saying it was a lie. I'm saying those numbers were a lie.
I'm saying
Which
if,
they were.
if I'm negotiating with you,
Yeah, and you lied to me. I wouldn't negotiate with
I'm
you. But
not
those numbers
lying
were a lie, right?
if I'm negotiating with you and an NPR reporter comes to me and asks me something and I say, this is going to be the result, I'm actually speaking to you, but if I were to tell the NPR, oh, guess what? Let me give you my actual negotiating position, okay? Because you can then put it on NPR, and the Chinese will figure it out by tomorrow morning.
I think I would probably use the massive governmental apparatus I have to negotiate to do that, because that seems like a more
because
appropriate
the
and
massive
mature
governmental
way to do
apparatus that we
negotiations.
have is proven to be completely
I love how
and utterly incompetent.
So then
we're not getting an answer to the question at
everything that
all.
comes from the Trump administration, I should interpret as being potentially fallacious.
Probably because I have no clue. I have no clue if Dinesh even knows whether or not there were lies or not. I have no clue if he even knows the messed up formula they used to actually calculate the tariff rate, which did not really have anything to do with the tariffs they imposed on us. It was literally just a trade deficit divided by imports. Like,
it could all be a lie because he's trying to negotiate with other people. Then
I'm saying
trade deficit in
negotiation is a
goods.
moving ball.
It was trade deficit in goods divided by imports, which is really especially stupid because the U.S. exports a lot of services. We import a lot of goods and export a lot of services. So if you adjust for that, the tariffs would not have been nearly as high. And if you use the correct okay, my Minecraft is crashing. Awesome. If you use the correct elasticity of prices, what's it called? There's a term. Why am I forgetting the term? It's like elasticity of import prices with respect to tariffs, because they cited like the elasticity of retail prices with respect to tariffs, rather than just a actual import price, which is what matters for what they were doing, which is like, calculating the supposed trade barriers they impose on us. Then the tariff rates go down a lot too, and most countries get the minimum 10%.
I'm saying that Trump is very capable of putting on a tariff and saying, I'm going to put on this tariff on January 7th, and then he doesn't do it. Is he lying? No, he's not lying.
No, that's
he's
what we're talking
threatening to do it.
Well, he did do it, number one.
For it.
The big chart was a lie. Why can't we just admit that? This is what I'm talking about at the very beginning of this conversation. Looking at the reality. It was a lie.
I'm saying that these bombastic claims
were lies.
In the course of negotiation, it doesn't even matter, because the real issue is, what are you getting in the deal?
If I don't know if you saw me walk up on stage, but if I put in my Tinder profile that I'm 6'2", and I show up at my date with really good posture, does that count as just being bombastic, or would that be a lie?
All right, let me give you an example for why.
Well, let's have an example. How about when the president held up a board with a bunch of tariff numbers and they were all lies? Wouldn't that be a lie? Can we say that was a lie?
I'm saying that presidents, in the course of foreign policy and trade negotiations, every president lies to us all the time.
Give me an example of a single other.
He said the word lies finally. Okay.
Example where a president has lied like that to the American public.
Okay, I would say that every deal that the United States has
One example.
Okay, I'll give you 10 examples.
Just one. I see one.
Yeah. Okay. So the United States, for example, lies about its dealings with terrorists. It lies about Reagan lied about.
I'm sorry, hold on. National security secrets with terrorists and corporate things are not economic deals. We don't lie. The American president doesn't lie to the public about economic deals.
We're not talking about national security secrets. I'm talking about national security policies.
I'm talking about economic trade deals.
I'm saying economic for Trump. When you're dealing with foreign adversaries, the distinction between a trade deal and a hostage swap and a deal with Maduro to get out, these are all on a continuum.
Able that's the problem with Trump.
That's
every
not a problem.
single thing with him feels like a hostage negotiation.
Well, because it is. That's the way the world is.
I agree with you. It is. That's not the way the world is, though.
No, it is the way the world is.
Trump was president. He holds our allies hostage. He has our economy hostage. He's holding immigrants hostage, sometimes illegally detained or otherwise, and he lies to us in order to sell his deals to personally enrich himself.
Maduro has a call with Trump. Maduro makes a call to Trump. Maduro says, I'm going now based on public reports. Maduro says, give me $100 million, thereabouts. Let me stick in there for a few months. Let my handpicked deputy Delcy Rodriguez run, and I will actually have a free election. This is Maduro in the phone call to Trump. Trump says nothing about any of this. Trump comes and says something completely unrelated, which on the face
notice
of
how
it,
we're not talking about the lie about the tariffs at all. You're talking about like national security, military related stuff. I'm just saying Donald Trump lied with the tariffs. It's very obvious that he lied. We have 0 trade deals right now, even though we say we'd have 100 deals in 100 days or 90 deals in 90 days.
Are you saying, okay, let me ask you this.
Oh, no, he brought up the trade deals, and that's just never going to actually answer the question about did Trump lie about the tariffs. He's just going to talk about the trade deal.
What amount of money does the U.S. Treasury have as a result of tariffs that it wouldn't otherwise have? What is that number?
Oh, he's just right. He's talking about revenue now. Yay! Yes, incredibly responsive.
Here's something I remember. What was it?
You don't know.
No, because
it's
something
like 200
way less
billion.
than we would have got if we would have just not kept those tax cuts that Trump solidified with the OBBA or whatever.
So you don't even know what
true.
it is, but you are quite sure that it would have been more if he didn't do it.
Well, I know it's in the ballpark.
And so what I'm getting at is,
what is the number? Wait, what is the number? I guess it's about. Isn't it about?
It's a giant number, right? So the number.
You have no idea. You're trying to say I don't have an idea.
The number. Hold on.
I think our having no ideas are very different. I'm saying it's in the ballpark.
Awesome, man.
Okay, I can estimate the number because we're talking about a number.
Oh, you can estimate
We're talking about a $2,000 rebate to all Americans who make under $100,000.
Can't wait for the rebate check to come in, which, by the way, the revenue raised so far from tariffs is not even enough to pay for that. It's like $82 billion is short of that. And he's also promised tariff revenue to the fucking soybean farmers and that he has to bail out too.
happening. That's not gonna happen.
Okay. All right.
It's not. I'll give you 10-1 odds on
Okay.
$100 if you
So,
want. It'll never happen.
Let's put it this way.
Okay.
You are less curious about the actual tariff revenue benefit than
Why
you
don't
are.
taxes get automatically filed? I mean, I think they should get automatically filed. My understanding is that part of the reason is legitimately like fucking TurboTax lobbying for that shit, right? It's so pathetic we still have to do this manually in 2025. Yeah.
Scoring a gotcha on a press conference where you go, Trump misrepresented the tariffs, which is admittedly a moving target, but the actual benefit to U.S. citizens is a matter of completely difference to you.
Import taxes. Do you admit that a tariff is an import tax?
A tariff is an import tax that can be borne either by the no, that doesn't follow. It can be borne either by the producer or the consumer.
It's paid for by the consumer.
Okay, economic illiteracy 101. Let's look at an example. No, false. Let's say I'm Mercedes. Okay, I'm Mercedes-Benz, and I'm charging.
I like how he's not citing any evidence in favor of his position, because technically it is true. Tariffs could be borne by foreign producers. It is possible, and that does happen to some extent sometimes. Okay, especially if you're a large country, you know, importing, and you can affect the world price to some extent. But if you actually look at the evidence with respect to tariffs the U.S. has imposed historically, or even the evidence we have with regards to tariffs imposed now, it turns out, actually, foreign producers are not bearing the majority of the cost of the tariff. The amount depends on, the amount that foreign producers are bearing depends on a lot of things. It doesn't seem like it's more than, by any reasonable estimate, I haven't seen anything more than 20% by foreign producers. And then some of it is borne by U.S. producers, you know, U.S. retailers and stuff, who don't fully pass the cost on to the consumer. And then obviously some of it is borne by the consumers. I think if you look at the most recent Alberto Cavallo paper, I think they estimate roughly like over 20% is passed on to the consumer. And they don't provide an estimate for for how much foreigners are bearing it, but it's likely not very much, because the same author actually has previous work showing that foreign producers bared less than 10% of the cost of the tariff by reducing their own prices.
Let me hold on, because I already know the explanation. No, because I already know the explanation. Go faster. You're going to say that technically the producer or the supplier of a thing can actually decrease their prices a little bit in order to make the price a little bit more bearable at home because of the import taxes that are being paid. And you would be correct in that. An economic analysis, a true one, would yield that it's about 50-50 paid for by the consumer and the producer. That's still a bad state of affairs. Okay. We're paying an import tax, and now we have the ability to import less.
It's not even 50-50.
And the foreign suppliers are supplying us as a result of that. If you want to go the actual econ answer, that's fine. These are the same economists, by the way, that all support central banking and currency controls and everything else, by the way. They're happy to cite here, and they're all opposed to tariffs as a form of economic policy as well.
All right. Well, all I'm saying is that a minute ago, you said that tariffs were borne by the consumer. And then you suddenly realize that that's not true, and that Mercedes, if they are going to increase the cost of a Mercedes, let's just say by $40,000, now going to realize that many people would rather buy other types of cars or American-made cars. And so Mercedes decides, listen, we're making 40 grand on a car. We can't afford to eat the entire tariff, but maybe we can afford to eat 30K, and we'll only make $10,000 on our car. And businesses make these decisions all the time. And you actually know it because you just admitted it.
I didn't admit it.
Earlier you were trying to con the audience.
I was giving a simplified answer to somebody who found out they just found out what fractional reserve banking was like 10 weeks ago.
It's not a simplified answer.
The question is,
no.
At some point they will stop producing. They stop producing. They just won't make those products.
It's not a simplified answer. You were lying to the audience in the hope that you could get away with it. I called you on it.
True.
You quickly beat a retreat. And so, because you realize I can't get away with this lie, I now have to explain the process in which prices are determined.
Okay, you know what? You got me completely in a lie. Would you admit that an income tax isn't borne completely by a worker then? That companies are forced to offer higher wages as a result of potentially higher income taxes?
Companies are not forced to do anything.
Oh my God.
So Dinesh, final thoughts, guys. We got to do final thoughts.
Okay, I'll finish my thought.
I don't know. I doubt much of the incidence of income taxes borne by corporate, that effect might be there, but it's probably also entirely offset by the fact that income taxes is going to reduce savings and lower, I went to the portal again, and make companies worse off overall. I think a campaign that ran on 1, a public option; for healthcare; 2, automatic tax filing; 3, massively increased penalties for crime; 4, ending all tariffs; and 5, raising minimum wage to 12 hours would win around 70% of the vote. I don't think you're ever going to win 70% of the vote because people are just going to be aligned with their party oftentimes. But I agree all those positions are popular.
All my life in companies, our tax rates, the tax rate when I started working in the early 90s, this is as a result of the Reagan tax cuts, by the way, the top marginal tax rate had dropped from 70% to 28%. It's now up to about 39%. So all my adult life, I've seen taxes go up from 28 to 39%. I have never been in a job, and I've been in many of them, where my employer said, oh, the government raised your taxes, we're going to raise your pay. The company might be nice and do that. You might be able to negotiate it through a union. But the idea, again, another like whopper, that it's somehow an automatic process, that if the government raises your taxes, that correspondingly companies raise. He said, of course, to raise your salaries commensurate with those taxes. And I'm saying that's simply untrue.
So for some reason, producers will lower their sales price.
I'm saying that producers will, because of the competitiveness of the market.
There's no competitiveness in the labor market in the United States?
Exactly. There is competitiveness in the labor market. So if the government raises your taxes, companies, by the way, are not in any position where they have to do anything because the taxes are being raised uniformly.
Not only is there state taxes that are higher in some states than there are others. And guess what? Companies offer more compensation in those states than they do in other states.
Because they have to, in that case, yes, they have to attract labor from Texas to come and work in New York. So I agree with that. But I was talking about a federal tax which applies uniformly where those pressures
Well, that's interesting. You bring up that different markets might engage in different tax behavior. Wouldn't it be harmful for U.S. markets if the U.S. was the only country that was levying these massive tariffs on other countries who were bilaterally tariffing us? Doesn't that make our market less competitive than foreign markets now who don't have those same arbitrary U.S. tariffs that all came from a big poster board that was full of lies, remember?
Well,
right?
here
they don't
we
have those tariffs on them?
Here we get to the fact that there are many countries that don't allow our products in at all. And if they allow them, they have high tariffs in place. So here's my question. You know, it's really wonderful to hear all these guys give economic analysis. Tariffs are self-defeating. They are horrible.
Is he gonna cite any numbers? Is he gonna cite any numbers? Is he gonna cite any numbers? It's just not true. It's like the effective average tariff rate on U.S. products in fucking Europe and Japan and stuff is like all under like 5%. It's like so minimal. And it doesn't even like it's not even a good thing to do reciprocal tariffs unless you think you can get some well, there's an optimal tariff theory insofar as like you know, you can change the world price, but probably not many places where that would actually be effective right now. But you know, it doesn't even follow that just because a country is imposing tariffs on you that you're actually better off if you impose reciprocal tariffs on them. That'll just make things worse for you as well. Like that's still just not bad.
For countries, they undermine our own consumers. And here's my question: why does every other country have them?
They don't. That's the
they don't.
Yes, I love economics. Why is it good distortion that companies are forced to offer higher wage? I don't think it is. I never suggest that as such.
There's a reason why Ukraine wanted to join the European Union market.
Well, let's talk about India.
Russia.
India
We're
gonna have to save it for round two, guys. But can we at least agree on the importance of public intellectual debate like this?
I think we can, and this has been very spirited. I've actually enjoyed it. I knew I was kind of coming a bit in the lion's den, but I thought that I would take up the challenge, and I think it's been really interesting and really good. So I'm glad we had a chance to do the sparring.
I appreciate you for coming out. Yeah.
We need more of this.
Why did Destiny say
All right,
that?
let's give them a big round of applause.
I don't know if Destiny was suggesting it was good. Destiny was just talking about how Destiny was just trying to draw an analogy there with regards to producers lowering prices and bearing the, you know, some of the incidents of income tax or tariffs, right? Like.
This has been the battle for the capital. Stephen Bonnell.
He was showing that just because, like, the point of the analogy was to show that just because the producer bears some of the incidents, that does not mean that it's good. Like that was really ultimately the point of his analogy.
Destiny and Dinesh D'Souza. Big round of applause. All right, we are going to take a really quick break while we set up for the poster signing here. Everyone feel free to...
You know, at least it seems like Dinesh recognizes that he did not do well. You know, he said, oh, I knew I was coming to the lion's den. At least we got that much. But oh my god, he literally must have a humiliation fetish. I just wish, when can we get Destiny back on the econ arc, okay? Oh my god, kill me. It is fucking hilarious though that Dinesh is like raving about fractional reserve banking right after saying, oh, Americans don't even know how banking works. Thank you for watching, and if you want to help me continue to make content, liking, subscribing, and commenting are all greatly appreciated. You can also make sure to check out my Twitch, my Kick, and my Twitter down below, or consider becoming a member to my YouTube channel, which really helps support me as well.